Yes, hello?
Hi, it's Hillary Clinton.
Mrs. Clinton, what a pleasure. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. It's so great to talk with you. Thank you.
Now you have listeners in the whole Colombia and Panama, in the East Coast, and especially in New York, where you are right now. Tell me about last night's debate. You were very patient with Mr. Bernie. He was very angry with you.
Well, I have learned to be patient over my lifetime because, it's easy to talk about problems. It's harder to actually solve them, and I'm in the problem-solving business, and so I want to keep talking about what I'm going to do to help people get ahead, and I'm particularly focused on my agenda for Latino and immigrant families. So I'm just going to keep talking about what we can do together to knock down those barriers that hold people back.
Mrs. Clinton, there are a lot of people on the side for this important election in New York. Why you recommend them to vote for you and do not vote for Bernie?
I think first because I had the great honor of representing the people of New York in the Senate for 8 years. I know the people of New York. I have friends. I have good relations with local and city and state leaders. I understand the problems of New York, what we're going to do to get more jobs, improve education for every child, provide more affordable housing, make sure everyone has health care, and finally get us to comprehensive immigration reform. That is why the leaders, the Latino leaders in New York have all endorsed me. They're speaking out for me. They are appearing on radio and television. They're writing articles in the newspaper in English and Spanish. They know that I will have your back. I will fight for you. I will stand up for you. And when I represented New York, I also felt like I represented Puerto Rico. So I will be the best president Puerto Rico has ever had to help Puerto Rico solve its problems and particularly to deal with this terrible debt crisis. And finally, I know that our Latino community is so diverse. And you mentioned Colombia, you mentioned Panama. We could mention all the Caribbean countries and the other Central American and South American countries. I know these countries. I've been in these countries. I know the people. I know the leaders. And I will be on the front lines of working to improve and further the relationship between the United States and Latin America.
Ms. Clinton, here in New York, we have a wide audience that's largely Colombian, as you have said, and trade has been a continuous issue on the campaign. Mr. Sanders criticizes you for supporting FTAs with Mexico, with Panama. I'm wondering, what's your position on Colombia's FTA that has been very successful, according to many?
Well, I support some trade agreements, including Colombia, and as Secretary of State, helped to make sure it was passed by the Senate. I do oppose some that I think are not good for working people, for people in America. But I supported the Colombia deal. I supported the Panama deal. I support the kind of trade deals between the United States and Latin America that I think are good for the people in both countries.
Mrs. Clinton, your husband helped us 15 years ago with Plan Colombia, and we are very thankful about that. But the war against drugs, we lost it. We have more drugs than ever. Do you think now we need is a Plan USA about avoid consuming in your country?
I think that's a very important question. And yes, I do think that. I was proud of the work that Bill started with Plan Colombia, and I am now, very supportive of what President Santos is attempting to do to try to finally end the insurgencies in Colombia, bring people to the peace table, end the conflict. And I think we've got to figure out a new strategy to deal with the drug gangs, the drug cartels, the terrible toll that is taken on families in Latin America and the United States because of the illegal drug trade. So I am looking for new and better approaches. I'm very concerned about the Central American countries that are now bearing the burden of the drug trade. As we've seen Colombia get much stronger and take on the drug traffickers there, we're seeing Mexico beginning to deal with it. Now the burden is falling on poor countries like Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador. So, yes, I want to help the countries in Latin America to have the support, the tools they need to defend themselves, and we've got to take a hard look at the demand side, where it's the demand in the United States that drives the drug trade, and we've got to, move toward decriminalizing low-level drug use, changing some of our laws, and so we've got to do both at the same time.
Secretary Clinton, back to immigration, since it implies also all the talk